Hello to all my loyal YouTube viewers, and I hope all are having a happy and fun Sunday today. And in today's video, we are going to be making a layered dessert pie. And what you will need for this pie is you will need flour, sugar, salt, whatever salt you like. I prefer using sea salt. It's not as high in sodium. And you'll need vanilla, and you'll need the salt, the nutmeg, and the vanilla. As well as you will need cream cheese and butter, ricotta, and chocolate. And you will also need heavy cream. This is the component that'll be used in two parts of this layered pie. And the first thing we need to do is we will need to measure out 1.5 cups of sugar. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping a step because I did not open the butter here. But you also need the butter because you're going to cut it up into the pie crust dough. And now we're going to add our flour. I'm going off camera for a minute. You need a spoon. I always like to measure things out because that's how you're supposed to when you're baking. And then you will have to level this out so it's an even cup and not overflowing. I mean, you could potentially have it flow out a little bit, and then that just means you don't have to do an entirely leveled out 1/2 cup of flour. Okay, now we need to measure out 1/2 cup. Okay, we got that mixed now. And now we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. No more than that. We also need 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. and half a cap of vanilla. Now we need to cut the butter up into chunks. Oh yes, we also need half a cup of sugar. Sorry I went off camera, I'm back here. I thought I need another spoon. I'm just gonna use the same spoon that I used before with the flour. You need just about half a cup. I'd say about 3/4 of a half a cup. Well, almost half a cup. So you don't want as much sugar as half a cup. Because you're also going to add sugar to the outside of the pie crust. So that'll also add sugar to this. We want the pie crust to also be kind of sweet, but not too sweet, because the filling is going to be kind of sweet too. And this pie crust is also your standard pie crust, just I'm adding extra ingredients into it to make it more adaptable, or to be more I'm not sure if I'm saying this right. So what I'm trying to say is I want this pie crust to marry well with the pie filling. I mean, you could use a regular pie crust, but I don't think it'd be as good as if you made the pie crust a little sweet. And now I'm going to chop the butter up to go into this pie crust. I am kind of chopping this butter up a little bit too thick, and I would recommend that you don't chop it up this thick. And then the next thing you need is really cold water. And you want to pour in as much as you want to pour in slowly, a steady amount of water till you have enough to combine these ingredients. This is the one step that I recommend that you don't forget. And don't forget, you don't want your butter to be at room temperature. You want it to be cold. I'll be back. Must be ready. Say it's somewhere. Okay, now the next step we need to do is start pouring in our water. Sorry, I went off camera again. I'll be right back. Right, I am back here. We need to now start incorporating the ingredients together with the water. We're getting closer to the dough consistency, if you can see. I do have a question that I want to ask to my viewers lately. They've been enjoying my videos, and what parts of the videos I've done they enjoy the most. And if anyone would like to share, please respond to this question below my video. I'd appreciate it. I think we need a little bit more flour, so I'm going to add a little bit more flour. Not a lot, just a little bit more. And just remember, it's easier to add than it is to subtract from the recipe. Add a little bit more, not a lot more, so it's getting closer to about 2 cups, but you don't want to add too much more, just enough that it's not going to be too wet, because then that just means it's not doughy enough. And you don't want it to be too doughy either, because then that's not good either. And I'm doing this also because I'm about to put this out onto the clean table. But if your dough is a little bit doughy, you could also add the flour while it's on the table before you start rolling it. The other reason I did it in the bowl, because it won't be as messy as if you were to try and put it out on the table. And just give me a second here. I'm gonna put the flour away here and the sugar. We are gonna need the sugar again. Okay, we're gonna also flour. I forgot we need to flour again here. Excuse me, I'm off camera again. I'm gonna wash my hands here. Okay, we're gonna sprinkle flour on the table because it helps to keep the pie crust from sticking to the table. If you didn't want to do this, you could always use parchment paper too. It will be less messy than the way I'm doing it. But I would strongly recommend too that you flour up that parchment paper too, because the dough will want to stick to the parchment paper too. You don't need as much flour though if you're gonna flour up your parchment paper. Sorry again, I'm just moving some stuff so I have more room to roll here. I'll be back in a second here. And now we need to start rolling. And I am going to roll it out enough, and then I'm going to fold this over again after I roll it out. I'm going to do this only once, this process. It will make it a little bit flaky, but not too flaky. You can roll this out and fold it over as many times as you like to make it how flaky you want the dough. But just remember also, the more you roll it out and fold it over, you also start to build up the gluten. So you don't want to make it too gluten-y either. And you want to roll it out enough so that you can get it into the pie pan, and that there's enough that it kind of hangs over a little bit. Okay, this is the pie pan I'm using. It's not very big, but you can use whichever pie pan you like. I say this is probably the easiest way to do something, because you don't want to have to try and figure out the size of the pan by freehand. So I say it's better to put the pie pan down over the pie crust, so you can just trace it with a good knife. So you can make the exact shape you want. But if you want to do it, you could do it freehand too. Just remember, if you do it freehand, it's not going to come out exactly as the pie pan you're going to put it in. you might wind up with a lot of pie crust like I have. So what you could do with this is make more of this pie, or you could also make a small dessert pie too if you like, or a small dessert lunchbox pie as well with the leftover pie crust. Sorry, I'm taking a little bit longer here. I need to get this pie crust out of this frame here so we can get on to the next step here. Right there. Alright. I'm sorry, I'm cleaning up too as I go. I just want to make things look tidy right now before I get to the next phase here. Okay, let me just get something here that I can use. I'm still cleaning. I'm sorry for the boring part of this video. We are going to now the next thing I'm going to do after this is get this pie crust into the oven, but I also need to, before that, I'm going to melt a little bit of butter and put that on top of the pie crust so that I can have the sugar stick to it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to now melt the butter here. And the way I'm going to do this, because it's easier and quicker, is in the microwave. You're only going to need a small amount of butter, as it's not being used for much else than the fact that it's going to be going into the microwave. it's just being used for one thing, to help the sugar stick to the pie crust. As we want to make this more of a sugary pie crust. Alrighty, I'm sorry I'm out of frame here. I'm still doing a little bit of cleanup. I'm just waiting for the butter because we need to get the butter onto this pie crust. Hot bowl. Okay, now we have the butter. So we just need to now get the butter onto this pie crust. I'm waiting for this butter to cool down because I don't want it to heat the pie crust. I don't want it to start heating or cooking up the pie crust. Sorry to go off camera again, I just need to get another spoon. I do not want to use the same spoon I used the butter, because it'll wind up sticking more to the spoon than it will trying to be going on to and now we need to put some holes in this so it doesn't rise up, because you do not want this pie crust rising up. And now we're going to set the oven to 350 degrees. You only want to have this pie crust in here for 15 minutes at the max, maybe 18, but no more. Something. Sweet crust. See where I'm just waiting for the oven to set up so we can get this into the oven. And then after that I'm going to take a break, and when we come back I will get this out of the oven and we will start the next phase of this layered pie, which will be the chocolate custard that's going to go on the bottom, and then it's going to be a cheesecake, and then on the top we're going to put a whipped mousse on top. Sorry about that. And I'm sorry this part's kind of boring. I'm still waiting again for the oven to get heated up to the right temp before we put this pie crust in there. Alright, we are now getting this into the oven. And I will be right back.